Welcome in, everyone. It is Overreaction. The Overreaction show here on Dogs Down South, meaning it's the beginning of a week and a weekend is now over. And the overreaction from this past weekend, Georgia, Auburn. Man, Georgia survives, Auburn stumbles. The Deep South wake-up call? I don't know. Welcome back to the Overreaction show for the week here on Dogs Down South. I'm Ted Turner, your host of Dogs Down South. Today we talk about the fight in Jordan-Hare. Georgia edges Auburn 20-10 from this past weekend. That's right. I mean, on paper, it's just another Georgia win, right? Georgia win over Auburn. Georgia has now beaten Auburn in 9 straight in the Deep South's oldest rivalry. But the drama, controversy, the way the game flipped, so many storylines to react to. We'll walk through the stats, the bad, the good, the turning points, the overreactions we're tempted to make, and where both programs are going from here, for better or worse. So let's buckle up. Let's hop in. So obviously, this is a game that I was actually live in person in Jordan-Hare Stadium. And so right out of the gates, I read a lot of storylines from social media, specifically people, just fans in general, talking about the game and talking about what was going on, and Mike Bobo and Glenn Schumann and all of the sorts. But let me get out some stuff here before we get going. So 92,000 plus in Jordan-Hare. It's a night game. I was a part of the tailgating scene all around Jordan-Hare Stadium, which shout out to Auburn fans. Man, you guys do such a great job on game day. And there's always those fans, right? The ones that just can't get it right or obnoxious and, just have no other place on this earth than to sit around and be obnoxious and obviously troll for their team or against their team. And in this certain scenario, a lot of them from Auburn, when you did run into them, were trolling from a level of, hey, have you not looked back and realized you have 8 straight losses to Georgia? But the majority very classy. Shout out to Tiger Prowl, Tailgate, always so incredibly hospitable. We hung out there. It's a primetime tailgate spot. They've won tailgate of the week over there in Athens. I'm sorry, was it Athens? In Auburn. And so shout out to them for being so hospitable. I got to watch some of the games, hang out with some Auburn fans and Georgia fans, see the Tiger Walk, and then walk straight into the stadium right there at the corner for the beginning of the game. And it was a day that saw a lot of fans from both sides have the entire day to take in college football, to get intoxicated and riled up and ready for their teams to play. And you could hear it in Jordan-Hare Stadium on Saturday night. It was loud. Auburn was ready to play. And from the first half backwards, I would say that the perfect setting was occurring for Auburn in all ways. I mean, and the reason I'm getting all this out is because there's so many fans that are continuously coming out with this, I call it just babbling, throw up of the mouth, of just you can't just hesitate to hop on social media and act like you're 12, right? Maybe, I don't know, maybe even that's a bad take of 12, because I know some 12-year-olds out there that wouldn't hop on social media and act like that, right? But you just hear some things like Glenn Schumann's not worth the time and effort. Mike Bobo, this is the problem, and so on and so forth. And Kirby's lost his mind. Listen, there was a lot of emotions that went on in Sanford Stadium. Now, this Georgia team, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right off the bat, this is not one of Kirby Smart's most talented teams. This is not the most talented team that's ever been at Georgia in the Kirby Smart era. But I'm going to tell you, this is one of the most hard-fighting, never down and out, going to keep getting back up after you think you knocked them out teams that I've ever seen Kirby have. And I know that it was mentioned on a couple of other podcasts, but a couple of other people have said this. They said, this is this is the reason why you come to Georgia. Bloody Tuesday is a day where you got to go out there and you're gonna get hit in the mouth. You're gonna get stretched. You're gonna get asked a lot of, sometimes overly exceeding what you think you can give out. But Kirby is a believer in these things will make you better when crunch time comes. And Georgia has done nothing but be in crunch time. And a lot of our fans are like, well, we've been in crunch time because we haven't showed up in the first half, or we haven't done this, or we haven't played great on offense, or our corners have been susceptible, or Mike Bobo sucks, or Glenn Schumann's overrated. And Glenn Schumann hadn't had Muschamp and Kirby. And guys, at the end of the day, Kirby Smart is still at this. He's still the coach of this football team. And so if you think he's not going to have a big hand in the defense, it's not just Glenn Schumann out there, and it's not just Dante Williams, and it's not just T-Rob, and it's not just – these guys are not just out here just screwing up. Like, you don't think that Kirby Smart had a huge part in the adjustments at halftime? But we don't talk about those things. We don't talk about those things because we can be seen and we can be heard. We can sound more asinine if we sit here and talk about things like that. But I would tell you, before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's overreaction show, that Mike Bobo made some very incredible third down calls in the second half. From a coach that called plays according to the script of the game plan, it was hard to get off to a fast start. We saw the ball for 8 minutes and 20 to 30 seconds in the first half. The time of possession was incredibly lopsided, 22 and change to 8 minutes. The yardage was incredibly lopsided. You're looking at 230 something plus yards to 20 in the first half. But the one thing that everybody missed, regardless of it was the right or wrong call, was the turnover battle that changed everything in the first half, right? And so I think we can all agree that the turnover battle that was won right there in one play in the first half was one of the biggest key elements in the entire game. But to cap that off, I would just say we're just incredibly out of our minds if we don't look and go, this is not Kirby Smart's most talented team he's ever fielded. Yet, here they sit here, and they only have one loss this year in a schedule that, in my opinion, I think we played a good Tennessee team in Knoxville. I think we played an Auburn team that was hungry for a win, that was playing for their coach, that their fan base was riled up. I mean, that place was loud, man. It was loud. I mean, I was sitting in there, and if the atmosphere at Tennessee, which I've heard was even louder than that, man, like what this team and what these coaches and what these players are doing in an atmosphere like that, any other team in America folds. And a lot of teams did fold on Saturday. There's a lot of teams, there's a lot of fans even out there, going, Georgia almost did this, Georgia did that. But there was a lot of teams on Saturday that, 20-10 victory, they didn't come out of there with a win. They didn't come out. They got a lot more things to worry about this week other than just moving on, and whether they called the timeout or whether they clapped, whether the coach clapped, or whether the team should have done more in the first half. It should have been better in the second half. It's a victory. You play 4 quarters. So unless the rules have changed and we only play 2 quarters, then I don't see what all the fuss is about, right? Do we have things we still need to work on? Yeah. But the thing that's getting more and more real is that this Georgia team is never out of the game. They're always in the game. They're going to fight. And the one thing you can tell yourself too is if this is a team that finds itself up early, you can be very confident that they're going to shut the game down as well. You don't have to worry about them, pulling a 10 or 13 point lead and then losing it in the second half, because that's why you come to Georgia. Bloody Tuesday, Monday practices that are intense. It's not like we're just walking through the motions. We're just, okay, we're still a little tired. I mean, there's so much to say about this game, and we're going to get into it right now, starting with what did Georgia do right, okay? Halftime adjustments, second half defense flips. Auburn dominated early. Georgia flipped the script, holding Auburn to 40 yards after intermission. is eye popping, right? This is a team that had 230 plus yards in the first half, and it kind of had the feeling of nonchalantly because we're playing Ole Miss this week of the Ole Miss game last year where you felt like this could get out of hand any minute now. As a matter of fact, if Raylan Wilson and CJ Allen don't make that play on the goal line, this is a 17-0 ball game. And we're asking ourselves, is this game getting out of hand? I'm sitting there live going, is this it? Like, have they daggered us this early? And are we basically for the next half going to be going, unless we have an Alabama comeback from last year's showing or a burst of something, we're going to have to score every possession and we're going to have to hope we hold them to 0 points. And we didn't score every possession, but we held them to 0 points. We held them to 40 yards, and we did enough. So shout out to adjustments from Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, and the entire defensive staff, the coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball. Bobo had, I mean, any other year, the touchdown from Gunnar Stockton, you guys are complaining about. You guys are, if we hand that ball off up the middle and get 2 yards and we kneel it, or we come up short, everybody's going, well, there it is, 3rd and Bobo. Can't find any complexity, can't find any, dynamic plays to get us where we need to get. And yet he did, and he still can't get the credit. Mike Bobo can't get any credit from our fan base. Glenn Schumann can't. We are a fan base that is, I don't know, I can't really describe what the emotions are. It's like our fan base wants a perfect game every single game. And I don't know if you've seen this, but everybody would have probably looked at Oklahoma this past week and said, "Man, Oklahoma, man, they're on a winning streak. They look great. They look like they're a playoff contender. They're like the second best, maybe first best team in the SEC." And then they go down to this rivalry game against Texas, who's a team that everybody's been a little bit down on after week 1, and they lose to Texas, right? And so I don't think it's coincidental that the SEC is just good this year. I think the SEC is very competitive this year. I think imagine a coach like Kirby Smart saying, this is an SEC league that every single week there's a chance that teams that are supposed to win could lose, and teams that are supposed to lose could find a way to victory. I think he's right. I think he's incredibly right. I think Auburn is still sitting here with the chance to make the playoffs. I think Auburn is still sitting here with a chance to have a really great season. Now, do they have to reel off a bunch of wins? Yes, but I can tell you that the refs, in some occasions, have not been in their favor. I think they could do more adjustments. They could produce more offense. But Kirby said it himself. Hugh Freeze came up with a game plan first and second quarter of plays that nobody had ever seen, including Georgia. They didn't prep for any of that, right? So it just kind of brings me into like what's happening on the week to week basis with Hugh Freeze and this team. And I could sit down here and break Auburn down for a while, but this is not an Auburn podcast. But I will say, being around the university and talking to a lot of the fans this week, I'm really thinking to myself that this fan base and this team feels like they were in some ways against Georgia, against Oklahoma, and against Texas A&M. The officials had a lot to do with it. Now, I'll go back and tell you, Auburn had a whole second half to play. Regardless of momentum, they had a second half to go and play and make a difference. They didn't do it. Matter of fact, it was 15 yards total offense in the second half before they had the last few plays they had. So, I mean, I don't think you can blame it on the officials. I think if you can look at momentum, maybe they pulled a little bit of momentum out of the building. And maybe just Auburn is still just hurt from some of the really piss poor calls that happened in Oklahoma and that happened, against Texas A&M, and they saw, I don't know, remnants of it happening at Georgia as well. But when you look at real, could the fumble have gone both ways? Maybe, but I don't think so. I think even if you look back at it, I think the referees actually saved you a touchdown, right? It may actually be 27-10 because if you look at it, he was never down. So you can kind of look at both sides. Well, the ball cleared the plane, and then you can look at it from the flip side of, well, okay, they didn't call it a fumble. They called it a fumble on the field, but they reversed it and they called it dead. And actually, Georgia ran the ball back to score a touchdown. So there's so many ways you can look at it. The targeting call, it was a targeting call. It's targeting. Now, the later on, was there targeting against Georgia? Maybe. There might have been that should have never happened. That should have never happened. I think it was Kyron Jones. He should have never hit that guy late. If anything, if not targeting, it should have at least been a late hit. But like there wasn't a ton of those. I mean, you look at the holding play that resulted in the setup for the second field goal. You had a clothesline by Micah Morris. They missed, or maybe it was Bo Hughley, and then you had a clothesline by Micah Morris. They saw. They called the second one. It hurt. It hurt, and it stalled that drive out. That was initially a missed field goal. But they also came back. The officials did and called this ghost blocking the back call by Cash Jones, which is on everybody's video footage, just like the timeout call, the clapping call, whatever you want to say it was. I mean, people that talk with their hands sometimes, I mean, I can tell you the one motion a lot of times that Kirby Smart makes with his hands is either a timeout or he's clapping. Maybe he got confused. I don't know. Maybe you probably sit there and think I'm making excuses for him. All I'm saying is does it matter? Take his timeout away. Who cares? Give him a penalty right there. Who cares? The drive stalled anyway. So, so be it. So let's move on though. Turnover battle. We talked about it. Yes, it was one turnover, but it resulted in the momentum that was sucked completely out of Jordan-Hare Stadium. And I don't say that it was momentum sucked away that like they couldn't get back as far as like fan base and things of that nature. The reason the fan base wasn't very effective in the second half is because Auburn didn't really give them a whole lot to be effective about. Defense was, allowing Georgia to do a lot of what it wanted to do. I think Gunnar Stockton, a lot of teams are sitting back and saying, all right, zone's the thing. Zone's the thing for Gunnar Stockton. We're going to spy him. We're going to make him make some good throws in zone. Well, Auburn came after Gunnar Stockton. And man, how many times did Gunnar get up? And how many times did he continue to make plays? And just one of the toughest kids that I've ever seen come through Georgia. Does he still have some work to do? Yeah, we're all a work in progress. But Gunnar Stockton has done an incredible job, in my opinion, this year. And I'm not sitting here and trying to say, well, what are you basing that off of? I'm basing it off of the body of work right now, right? Not turning the ball over, making good decisions, giving him what the defense gives him, and going out and winning ball games. And I don't want to talk about this game, but we damn near came back and beat Alabama, right? So, clutch drive that went really well to finish the game as I watched it play out. And also you can go back to Auburn and their dumb, obvious penalties before the half. I mean, the roughing the passer when he drug him down, the PIs everybody's going to holler about PIs, but geez, man, like you can't take them by their jersey and drag them down. You can't clearly just not play the ball and bump into them. Georgia didn't get those calls first half. They got them the second half. Clutch drive to finish. When you go back and you look at it, a lot of people will say, should have Gunnar Stockton just knelt the ball there? Maybe. And I think Kirby coached him up on that. And, I think a lot of players would have got in trouble on that one because I think you see the end zone and you go, we're up 2010. What else could happen? And, Kirby is thinking, well, what else can happen is onside kick and things of that nature, but I know I can down it right now. They have one timeout. I can run the clock out. It's game over. Game over. There's no more tries, right? So I think that's what Kirby's thinking. But it was fun to see the Superman dive into the end zone on a day where Cam Newton got his jersey retired at Auburn, and so to see him diving towards the end zone doing the Superman pose was really, really cool. Really cool. Poise under pressure, resiliency for Georgia. Georgia's close to being down by 17 points, but man, didn't panic. Continued to just work the process. Grinded the field goal out before the half to make it 10-3, and then I literally turned on to other Georgia fans in the stands and I said, it's 10-3. We get the ball. Like this is as good as we can possibly like it after the abysmal, 28 minutes before that, right? And then consistent depth on offense and defense. I mean, man, Monroe Freeling coming in there. I mean, Kirby said it himself. If Monroe was to come in there, he what he saw on Wednesday, he would have never thought Monroe could have come in and done what he did, and especially not win Offensive Lineman of the Week. So that's impressive. That's grit. That's gutsy by Monroe Freeling. And this line, if we can get it healthy, I mean, Juan went out, was in early, went out later, and came back later on. This is just a line that is toughening things out. They're trying to get better. They are getting better. They're bumped up. They're bruised up. And so you got a tough one against Ole Miss, and then you got an off week. And so we'll see how October pans out. But obviously a lot of these guys are going to be completely hyped up for Ole Miss. If you haven't already done so, make sure you go like and follow us on Facebook, Dogs Down South, YouTube, Dogs Down South, Dogs Down South on TikTok as well. Make sure you go follow us on there. And then 24 hours later, all these episodes go up on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for you to listen to as you're going into work, coming home from work, or traveling to and fro wherever you're going. Let's talk about what went wrong a little quicker. Slow starts, obviously. Slow starts are still something that has to be worked on. 2 3-and-outs, run game wasn't very impactful. I'm hearing that. Chauncey Bowens was a little bit, had a little thing going on, a little tightness going on, and wasn't as effective at the beginning as he thought he would be. Apparently, he's okay to go this week. He thinks he'll be better this week, but early on, the early quick possessions with a team that was moving the ball in small spurts. It wasn't like they were just running it. They weren't just they weren't gashing us for 20s and 30-yard runs and 20 and 30-yard bombs, which some of these receivers are incredibly able to do. I think Cam Coleman's a really great receiver, one of the best ones in the SEC, and I think Eric Singleton adds a Zach Branch type mentality to Auburn, and you could tell that. Penalty, procedural weirdness, things of that nature. Obviously, Georgia was lucky to avoid this, but I mean, we had some of our own. Did the penalty game go our way? Maybe, but we also had some of our own reliance on single play turnovers instead of steady dominance. That's a loaded bag, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer that we want to get off to fast starts. A lot of it's going to have to do with, statistically, Kirby Smart will say we take the ball in the second half. If we win, we take the ball in the second half. I'm wondering if teams are going to begin to be like, hey, no matter what, we want to have the ball against Georgia first, right? Or maybe they don't, because maybe that won't assert any dominance later on in the game. Auburn's missed opportunities. I mean, multiple chances, goal line fumble, didn't convert on fourth down in the middle of the field, inability to sustain second half drives. Third down was key in the first because Georgia, I think Auburn was 7 for 9 or 8 for 9 at one point on third downs, and they only got 1 third down accomplished in the second half. And then inconsistent offense and inability to adjust under pressure early on. But I do think Gunnar Stockton, man, the ability to stand in there, make some of those throws was very crucial. Let's look at overreactions real quick, right? First off, Georgia is elite in the trenches, in my opinion. Do we have to make adjustments? Yeah. But I think all teams do. I think a lot of teams are playing Georgia differently. I think a lot of teams are preparing for Georgia way before the week of Georgia. I know Ole Miss did it last year, and so this is not new to Georgia to see these new looks, to see these new key things happening. And I believe Kirby when he said, we haven't seen some of any of this stuff, and I truly believe that, because the RPO game for them has been what has been very successful this year. And the ability to run the football with Jackson Dart and their running backs, but I had not seen them just sold out to handing the ball off to Eric Singleton in some ways, shapes, or forms. Sometimes quick passes. I mean, Jackson Arnold completed like 17, 19 passes in the first half, but he only had 123 yards passing. So he's only averaging 2-3 yards a pass. So if I'm in that game, like, I feel like I'm winning that statistic, right? Another overreaction I think that's happening is Auburn's season is spiraling. I mean, not really. I mean, you've played a good Texas A&M team close. You've played a good Georgia team close, and might depending on how the the swings of officiating and momentum happen, might have beat a good Georgia team, and then some people think should have beat an Oklahoma team that brought some bells and whistles out that were illegal, things of that nature. So, and a lot of us, I mean, even though you look at Gunnar Stockton, and even though you see Gunnar Stockton as a quarterback that has so much gut, so much grit right now, and is doing an incredible job, and yes, he has some opportunities. Some of those mid-tier, mid-level throws could be better, but he's throwing a good deep ball right now. He's making good decisions with the ball. He's getting us in the right sets, and he's distributing the ball, and that's what we wanted at the beginning of the year. So, is he like the alpha right now of Georgia's offense? I don't think that's it. I think he's doing exactly what we talked about this year. His goal should be to distribute the football. He needs to be a mailman. Excuse me. Is Georgia's defense like? Is it? Have they arrived? Like the adjustments they made against Auburn, and even though that they gave up some of the points and the way it looked in the first half, like I feel like in a second half, after 9:00 at night in Jordan Hare Stadium, 92,000 people yelling, screaming, most of them pissed off because they already feel like they're going to lose the game because of the officiating. And Georgia just continues to put together drives, continues to put together stops on big drives, continues to make plays happen. It's possible. This defense they're getting better, and the only hope you can have is that the secondary, especially in the corners, can have a revitalized second part of the season, which starts on Saturday against Ole Miss. And then the last thing is this where Auburn kind of goes to? They're going to continue to be a mess because they can't close games. I think it's an easy answer. I think the tale will be told on Saturday. They get Missouri coming in at night, and Missouri's a team that you're kind of still wondering, are they playoff fakes or are they playoff for real? They had their opportunities against Alabama. They didn't take them, and some people think that Missouri should have beat Alabama. But if Auburn wins this game against Missouri, some of the games they have coming down their way, if you look at them real close, there's a possibility they could be steering Alabama down in the Iron Bowl to not only beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl, but to possibly host a spot, not host a spot, but maybe to slide somewhere in the SEC talks of if they can get 6 teams in. Is Auburn one of those teams? I don't know. It could happen. And then these are some things I just kind of let simmer and to think about. You can't assume Georgia will win every close game. This one went that way early, but I think you're going to have some games the rest of the year that you're not going to have that. That's going to be part of the scouting report. Is if you can get Georgia early, you got to put them to sleep early, right? It's not if you can get Georgia early, that's how you beat them. No, that's just where the bulk of your problems start, right? I would say don't think Auburn is a dumpster fire. I think there's a really good way that Auburn could be 3-0. But there's also a way that Hugh Freeze might be coaching his last. I thought it might be this weekend. Maybe the officials save that. But I do think there's a possibility he could be in the lighter part of the possibility of, hey, which game's the game? And so losing I guess that would be 4th straight SEC game, barring there's no referee frenziness. If he loses at home against Missouri, is it probably time to pull the plug? Who knows? Only Auburn knows that question. And then don't elevate this. Georgia's, elevate it to Georgia's playoff lock. Tougher tests ahead. You got Texas, obviously Ole Miss, Georgia Tech's ahead, Mississippi State's ahead, and so this is still a team that is a week by week basis, and they are trying to effectively get better every week. So yeah, and then a little where do we go from here as we shut it down for the night? I think things we can build on: defensive identity, finishing ability. Yes, we finished it on Saturday, but I think finishing and getting off the field on drives and making sure we put our best foot forward when we're going, okay, they're beating us with the same things. What are we going to do to adjust on the fly? because some of these times, like if we're going into halftime, not every time do we get halftime to make adjustments, like, right? Because for all we know, if Hugh Freeze was smart, he would have had a pretty dominant game plan for the second half as well. Composure in tight games continues to be Georgia's. It's definitely their firepower. They've been able to dominate in the later parts of the game. I say this again: if you can get a Georgia team that hits the field and can dominate early and knows how to close like they know how to close, these games will look a lot better and feel a lot better for Georgia and the fan base. Um, Resilience, setbacks, a lot of setbacks earlier, right? Even officiating on the side of the Georgia team, right? Inefficiency to run the football. Kudos to Mike Bobo for not going away from it, right? It was a key part in setting up a lot of key runs and key situations later on in the game. Against high-powered offenses, something I would look at going forward. Can Georgia's defense sustain? Test is happening on Saturday against Ole Miss. Can they sustain against a high-powered offense that's going to challenge them vertically? It's going to challenge them, side to side. It's going to run the ball effectively. And, oh, by the way, it's got a coach who loves to go fast and loves to keep you on your heels and has found a pretty decent quarterback that can do all those things to help him accomplish those goals. And then, injuries. Can we get healthy? I think not being healthy right now in some areas is definitely hurting us. The hope is, where do you see, you want to see Monroe continue to get a little bit better, even though he had a week where maybe he didn't need to play, but he had to play. You look at those certain things. You look at getting Ernest Green healthy. You look at getting Juan Gaston more to 100%. These are key things if Georgia wants to go very deep, not only in their season, but a possible playoff run. And then, that everybody has these things, but turnovers and penalties, keeping them at bay is huge. But I predict that Georgia will continue to be a tough out, as I call it. They'll likely remain in the playoff conversation, but they're not going to be a team right now that you can just look every week and go, yeah, confident they're going to run away with these games. My bold prediction, they'll I think a lot of these SEC teams are definitely looking at one loss, if not two losses, and I think it's a 4 to 6 team format, and I expect a 2-loss team to probably get in from the SEC, and then depending on if it's a 6th or a 7th spot, I mean, who are teams that are thriving at that time that have 3 losses, right? So nothing's off the table for Georgia. So what do we really learn, right? Georgia survived. Auburn probably lost more than just a game. Perhaps a little momentum, confidence. But for Auburn, this game can't define your season. Hugh Freeze is, I think, any game away from Auburn finally just making the stamp of wanting to go a different direction, even though he's had health issues and things of that nature. From what I hear around the fan base around Auburn, that does not even come into play. This alumni association and these donors and everything will make the decision when they're ready. They will cut ties, and there'll be no, I'll say tears shed, but not over the decision of moving in the right direction. I mean, you just heard it from the Penn State AD this past week. He said, "You can be mad at me, you can hate me, you can hate James Franklin, but don't hate these kids. Don't be mad at these kids. Support them." Right? And Georgia's looked vulnerable early. Another thing for a final take is, but they showed they have the makeup to win, whether it's ugly, whether it's staying in the game. At times we looked overmatched against Auburn in some areas. They figured out a way to win. They figured out a way to adjust, and that's huge. That's key. And kudos to this coaching staff, because I do think this offense is averaging way better possessions, way better. We look way better than we did last year. We're making adjustments. We're running the ball very effectively with like 5 to 6 different offensive line combinations. And for the defense, I mean, you got to look at playing complementary football. Sometimes when the offense struggles to get out, defense has to make sure that they keep us in games and not let the game get out of hand, and vice versa. We got to score with these teams when the defense may have a hard time depending on what's getting thrown at them. So we just got to play complementary football. But for me, Georgia's identity keeps evolving. Defense, grit, opportune times to win games, and how they're going to do it. Auburn's got to decide whether they're going to be emotionally reactive or they're gonna this is going to light a fire up under them, and they're gonna change the narrative next week against Missouri. And Georgia has to definitely look at, if we do a retake on this against Ole Miss. Ole Miss is good enough to do more with their offense and defense to put you in a bad spot than I think Auburn would be. So I think we got to make sure and look at that and not do a repeat on that. So that's it for today for Overreaction, the Overreaction Show. Looking forward to this week. Georgia, Ole Miss. Obviously, most of us know 3:30 ABC on Saturday. College Game Day will be there, and look forward to a really good game. We're going to preview key players on both sides of the ball. Myself and Fish this week for the preview show. Make sure you join and check it out on YouTube or Facebook or TikTok or Twitter, and then 24 hours later, Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So, final notes: Georgia comes out 20-10 victory in Jordan-Hare. They get out of Auburn unscathed, but definitely a very interesting Deep South oldest rivalry for the 8th win in a row. So kudos to Georgia and the coaching staff and Kirby Smart and his staff. They've already celebrated it, and they're already moved on to Ole Miss. Can't wait to preview the Ole Miss game this week. I hope you enjoyed the show today. As always, you guys have a great week, and talk to you soon. Go Dogs.